Like we're taking off. I hope we are, but yeah. Where do you want to go? Just anywhere. There's gotta be some. Yeah.
Good evening. It is 7:33. I would like to call to order the March 28th meeting of the Norwalk Common Council. If you'll please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll please remain standing for a moment of silence for the victims of the Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. I don't think there's any doubt that gun violence is now the #1 cause of death for young children. And this is just another example of that situation. And we want to make sure that we recognize and honor them and respect them, but also call upon national, state, and local to do whatever we can to put an end to gun violence once and for all. Thank you. Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Burnett,
Present.
Mr. Camacho, Mr. Goldstein,
Present.
Ms. Najolski Eichner,
Present.
Ms. Smith. Here. Ms. Ayers,
Here.
Mr. Uvelman,
Present.
Ms. Revoluz,
Here.
Ms. Young,
Here.
Mr. Kaides,
Here.
Ms. McMurray,
Present.
Ms. Alterman, Mr. Meek, Mr. Livingston,
Here.
Ms. Shanahan,
Here.
Mr. Camacho, Ms. Alterman, Mr. Meek, 12, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, acceptance of the minutes of the special meeting of March 7th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Ms. McMurray, any discussions, corrections, deletions, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next is the approval of the minutes or acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 14th, 2023. Do I have a motion? Ms. Shanahan, any corrections, omissions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted?
Aye.
Negative?
Sorry. I'm abstaining.
And one abstention. Ms. McMurray is abstaining. Next, we have public participation. Is there anybody in the Mr. Wood, Mr. Dixon?
Mr. Mayor, first, I'd like to thank you for the moment of silence for what happened in Nashville, Tennessee. And let us hope and pray to the Almighty that it never happens in any other city again. And I know the support that we have in Norwalk by the Police Department, Board of Education, yourself, the members of the council, that we will continue to strive to ensure that does not occur in this particular city. It is an honor and a privilege today for me to stand before you in support of the nomination for the Board of Ethics for Miss Patricia Toney. I've known Mrs. Toney for approximately 20 years. I've known her family, her siblings, people that lived very close to her during the old days, I guess is the way it can be referenced, and also to some of her very good friends. Pat served the city of Norwalk and the hospital of Norwalk for 47 some odd years, retiring recently. During that time period, I think she served for approximately 17 years as a member of the hospital's Board of Ethics. And if there's ever a place that demands ethical behavior, it's a hospital. If you've ever had the opportunity to be a visitor, I hate to use the term unfortunate, but possibly unfortunate to be a patient, and you ask anyone on the floor, whether it be a medical staff, support staff, or someone that greets you as you walk in the front door of the hospital, and you just ask them, do you know Pat Tony? You'll be greeted with a very robust and delightful smile as they echo to you, do I know Pat Tony? In a very positive way, which demonstrates the admiration, the professionalism, and her dedication to the city of Norwalk Hospital. And I hope, it's a negative thing to say, but again, today I'm here to support her nomination for the Board of Ethics. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Any other person that wishes to address the council? I think we have Mr. Todd Bryant on virtually, Mr. Manzi.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to speak tonight. And I'd like to support the revisions to the demolition ordinance. Mr. Livingston and Mr. Ireland and I worked on this for at least a year. It seems like longer, to come up with the basic language that went to the ordinance committee. And I know in your package, you got all the debate that went on in the ordinance committee. So this has been arm wrestled over for quite some time. And all things considered, I think it is a vastly better ordinance than it was before. They're small changes, but they make a big difference. And I think, first of all, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get the 180 day delay as opposed to the 120, but even that is a good start. And I think the biggest changes and what will make the most difference is the codification of the penalties for not complying with this ordinance, which really were never codified before, and they are now really significant. The penalties that exist in this ordinance will not make it just a matter of doing business. These are substantial fines. They're going to get the attention of someone who intends to just get around this law somehow. And you see behind me, while we started on this before this travesty took place, the fact that it happened during our deliberations on it and while we were trying to improve the ordinance really underlines why we needed to do it. And I think that the penalties that are in place in this ordinance may have, you can't say for sure, but it may have deterred what happened here on Willow Street. So I urge you to pass it. I urge you to put it into law, and I think that it'll make it'll safeguard not only historic buildings, but any building in the city of Norwalk that might be that is proposed to be demolished, and that might be and could in some way keep somebody from attempting to skirt the intent and the letter of this law. So thank you very much, and please vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. I don't see any other hands raised. If there's anybody who is joining us virtually, if you wish to address the council, if you'll raise your hand so you can be recognized. Mr. Manzi, do you have anybody that?
Yes, we have someone with an email address. I just allowed you to speak. If you could unmute.
Is that me, perhaps?
Yes.
Dana Laird, 214 Highland. I'm hoping, again, as Todd said, that we can pass the revisions for ordinance 55 demolition delay. It's very important, I feel, to save the physical fabric of our city. Not anti-progress, but we are kind of bulldozing our way through our history. And that's all I have to say today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know I spoke, but I just want to identify myself. I'm at 23 Morgan Avenue in Norwalk, and I'm the president of the Norwalk Preservation Trust.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Any further public participation? Seeing none, I will close public participation. Next item on the agenda, resignations and appointments. The appointment of Daisy Franklin for the Fair Housing Advisory Commission. Do I have a motion? Ms. McMurray?
Thank you, Mayor. I am very happy and proud this evening to move forward the appointment of Daisy M. Franklin for the Fair Housing Advisory Commission. I am very proud to call Miss Daisy a friend of mine. She serves as Girl Scout co-leader with me at Marvin Elementary School, but in addition to that, she has represented the Norwalk branch of the NAACP on the Fair Housing Advisory Commission in the past, National Low Income Housing Coalition board member. She's been an active member of the Fair Housing Advisory Commission, which I previously said, an active board member of the Fair Housing Association of Connecticut. She's been a commissioner for the Norwalk Human Relations Commission, and she's been a secretary and member of board of directors of the former NEON. She is just a wonderful person. She is community minded and serves whenever she possibly can. So I'm very happy to push her forward.
Thank you. Any further comments? Ms. Young?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'd like to also speak in support of Daisy Franklin, who I met about at least 15 years ago when I came to Norwalk. And the one thing that I want to say is a lot of people have to have the passion. I guess I need this for you to hear me. So a lot of people need to have the passion to be engaged in community service and giving back. And I have to say, more than anything, that's what Daisy Franklin has, is passion for people and passion for helping. And housing is a really near and dear issue to her. And she has put in more work, I think, than most people in this city. And I think she's probably one of the most unsung heroes, sheroes in the city of Norwalk. And I am just so happy to have Daisy have this opportunity again to be able to do the thing that she loves, and that is serving the city of Norwalk. So thank you.
Thank you. I believe Ms. Ayers would like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for not being in the chambers, but I'm sure everyone did not want me there with a runny nose, so I decided to zoom in. I also want to stand with my colleagues and offer words of support for, I call her Sister Daisy, but Daisy Franklin to this commission. As a person who have known her all my life, I would like to say, what is something that sticks in the front of my mind when I think of her is a servant leader. She really embodies what we promote and think of when we're talking about civic engagement and engaging the community. And something else about Daisy that is, I think, very unique is if she has information about whatever the topic is, she's eager to share it with other people. Mm-hmm. She's not one person that just holds on to the information. And I think that's very important when we are appointing people to different committees and commissions and stuff, that there should be people that wants to give the information to the community. And I have witnessed many times when she has establish different venues to give information out so that people, the citizens, are aware of what's going on in the city. And I am very proud of the service that she has already given to the city. And I look forward to her continued work and dedication to the city in this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayers. Any further comment or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations and thank you to Ms. Franklin for her willingness to serve. Next item on the agenda is you'll be coming after. I don't know. You'll be coming up after on the president's remarks. I don't know if she knows I'm talking to her. Anyway, next item on the agenda, mayor's remarks. Last week, we, Norwalk, emails officially transferred from norwalkct.org to norwalkct.gov. It's a much a more trusted domain. And we did that because there's much more security involved. People that are on norwalkct.gov would know that they're dealing with a government entity. It's reserved for federal, state, and local governments, and we felt it was much better for us to transfer to that. Anybody who does continue to send emails to norwalkct.org for a period of time, the emails will come through. Next, last week we announced the Martin Luther King Corridor Initiative, where we're having it's an investment program in the next phase of MLK Corridor. And this phase includes a $1.25 million investment for two major residential improvement programs. Number one, the residential facade improvement program and the low income improvement loan program. These programs aim to enhance and revitalize the physical appearance of residential homes and neighborhoods, to improve the community ambiance, bolster property values, and increase the quality of life for some of our South Norwalk residents. And I want to thank everybody that helped make this happen. It takes a team effort, and there are a lot of people involved. And I think it's a wonderful thing for the South Norwalk Corridor in order to mitigate the effects of gentrification. You have to invest in neighborhoods and make people feel proud of the neighborhood they live in, make people feel safe in the neighborhood they live in. And these programs are designed to do that. I also would like to acknowledge, unfortunately, the passing of Carol Andrioli for her legacy. She's the first female fire commissioner of the city of Norwalk. She has passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 80. Carol deeply loved Norwalk, and I want to thank her for her service as fire commissioner, and may she rest in peace. And I want to extend our deepest condolences to her husband, Pete. Finally, I want to wish all of our Islamic community Ramadan Mubarak, Ramadan Kareem. And for now, then I'll turn it over to Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under general council business, we have one appointment, and that is the appointment to the Board of Ethics, and the candidate is Patricia F. Tony. So, Councilmember Josh Goldstein would like to move that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Ethics is one of our most important boards, and I can't think of a better nominee than Patricia Tony. A lifelong, as previewed by my friend Howard Dixon, Pat Tony is a lifelong Norwalk resident who has served in various capacities at Norwalk Hospital for 47 years. For 17 years, she serves on the Norwalk Hospital Ethics Committee, which is pretty good prerequisite to be on the Board of Ethics, and has clearly dedicated her life to service and to serving Norwalk on various other standing committees, and is an avid volunteer for the Norwalk Seaport Association. It's obvious that Pat Tony, in my opinion, it's obvious that Pat Tony is going to provide a valuable contribution to the Board of Ethics, and I want to recognize that she's here tonight in council chambers. I am sure I'm not going to be the only person who wants to speak in support of Patricia Tony. So, Mr. Mayor, I know you wanted to say something.
Well, I don't want to embarrass her or myself and tell people how long we've known each other. We grew up on parallel streets, Berkeley Street, Hudson Street, and I've known Patricia for many, many years. Her husband, Jerry, they're really good Norwalk citizens. Patricia, as Mr. Goldstein and Mr. Dixon pointed out, lifelong resident of Norwalk, comes from a wonderful and highly respected family. I just think I couldn't think of anybody better that would be on this ethics commission, because, as Mr. Goldstein pointed out, is one of the most important commissions that we have, making sure that people abide by proper protocols, proper rules of and those kinds of things, and not get involved in the kinds of things that we've seen elsewhere. But I do want to thank Patricia for her willingness to serve. And I owe them brunch. I don't know when they're going to take it. They bid on a brunch with the mayor and his wife, probably about 4 years ago now, 5 years ago now. And every time I see them, I said, when are we going to go to brunch? So soon. But anyway, I can't think of anybody better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Goldstein. If there's no other comments, oh yes, Councilmember Darlene Young.
So I'm going to make a comment, and this was just from an observation that I just had when Mr. Dixon was speaking. So I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Tony in my role as Recreation and Parks Chair. And you came to us for a project you wanted to work on. And to see you here with your wife is an example of a power couple in the city of Norwalk. I mean, it sounds crazy, but what Mr. Tony has done in the city with the Seaport Association in providing an event that is an attraction to the city, one of the largest attractions to the city every year, is an astounding feat to have been going on for so long. But to now have met your better half, I would say, is just amazing, because the work that she does is not easy. And that means that you all love people. And so, and your community. And so I'm happy to have met you here and to be able to move you forward for the Ethics Committee. So thank you.
With that, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor can raise your hand either person or virtually. All those opposed have the same right. Any abstentions? The motion passed. Congratulations. Moving on to the consent calendar for today, Councilmember John Kides will be reading the consent calendar.
Thank you. Ready for this lackluster reading of the consent calendar, and I will start with item A1, authorize Harry W. Rilling to execute a contract for a housing plan between the City of Norwalk and the Urban Land Institute in the amount not to exceed $80,000 by the way of sole source procurement of account number noted. C1, Public Works Committee, authorize the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute any and all deeds and other documents necessary to convey 23,484 square feet of 60 South Main Street as shown on the right-of-way survey entitled the Town of Norwalk Map, showing land acquired from the City of Norwalk by the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation, Walk Railroad Bridge Replacement Scale 1=40 feet, February 22, prepared by Scott A. Hill, PE, dated January 27, 22. Compensation to the City of Norwalk is $378,000. Item D1 under Public Safety and General Government Committee, authorized the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to issue a purchase order to Firemantic Supply Company, Inc., East Yepac, New York, for the purchase of 2 fire engines for a sum not to exceed $1,839,225, account number noted. Item D2, authorize the Department of Public Works to have Eversource Electric install 1 new street light on the existing utility pole at the east side of the property located at 50 Merrimack Avenue in accordance with the attached plan at the approximate cost of $25 per month, account number noted. Item D3, authorize the Department of Public Works to have an Eversource Electric install a new pole and the associated wire for 1 new street light on the west side of Rampart Road at the intersection of Buford Road within the city right of way in accordance with the attached plan at the appropriate one-time cost of $2,500, account number noted. Item D4, authorize the Department of Public Works to have Eversource Electric to install 1 new street light on a newly installed utility pole on the west side of Rampart Road at the intersection of Buford Road within the city right of way in accordance with the attached plan at an approximate cost of $25 per month, account number noted. Item E1, Community Service Committee, authorize the Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary to extend the student Practum internship agreement between the City of Norwalk Health Department and University of Bridgeport. Item E2A, authorize Mayor Harry W. Ridley to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for accept grant funds from Optimums Healthcare in the amount of $300,117 per year for contract period October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2027 for the Women's, Infants, and Children's Program. Item E2B, authorize Mary Harry W. Rilling to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary to implement the WIC programs for the period October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2027. And item E4, and that's authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary to extend the after-school partnership extension agreement with the Norwalk Housing Authority beginning July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2026. Item E5, authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary with Emily Melnick Consulting LLC to perform strategic planning consulting services to Norwalk Community Services Department in the amount of $10,000 total. Family Navigator grant account number noted and fair rent account number noted. And that is the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilman Heidi's. You've heard the reading of the consent calendar for today, March 28th, 2023. I'll call for the question. All those in favor, show by a sign of raising your hand or virtually. Any opposed have the same right. Any abstentions? Is that? Nora is your council member Nora Najelski Eichner, your hand is still up?
No, I'm sorry. No, I was just voting in favor. Sorry, there was a delay in it lowering for some reason.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm a vote in favor.
Thank you. The consent calendar was passed. Over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Burnett. Next item is the ordinance committee, item 7B1, Ms. Shanahan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Livingston to explain to the committee. First, I'll read the item. Approve proposed revisions to chapter 55, demolition delay, sections 1 through 10. And I do want to say that just to open, that Mr. Livingston and Mr. Bryant, along with the rest of the Historic Commission, has worked diligently. And I do think it's been more than a year working on this item. And unfortunately, it didn't come in time to save the building on Willow Street, but we think that this is going to make sure that accidents like that don't happen again. So, Mr. Livingston.
Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. I happened to notice before I came tonight that I have a memo on this item from November of 2021. So it's been in the works for a while. But as Ms. Shanahan noted, this is an amendment to our existing ordinance. And what it does, among other things, is it adds a definition of demolition, which we did have to date. And in that definition, we carve out an exception for ordinary maintenance or repair to make it easier to understand and administer. We also provide an exception to the ordinance for lifting to comply with FEMA or for any structure determined by the health director to be a threat to public health. The amendments clarify the application and notification procedure, and among other things, removes the requirement and expense of newspaper publication. Still requires notification of neighbors, but it gets rid of the newspaper publication. It provides that the sole basis of objection is that the building to be demolished is architecturally or historically significant, so there will not be frivolous claims one neighbor against another. It allows the party objecting to withdraw their objection, which is not currently in the ordinance. And it provides for an appeal process both to the Historical Commission and to the Superior Court if necessary. It prohibits demolition by neglect during the demolition delay period. And also, as Mr. Bryant said earlier, it increases the penalties to an amount we believe will be significant and make people pay attention. Just briefly, what it doesn't do, it doesn't extend the demolition delay ordinance, the period that is, as Mr. Bryant mentioned, the Historical Commission had asked for 180 days, but after much discussion at the Ordinance Committee, it was decided to keep with the 120. Nor does it change the existing 50-year look back. And I want to note that one in particular, because we had a lot of discussion about the 50-year period. And the 50-year look back is the standard used in the state model ordinance. It's also the same period used by most of our neighboring communities, including Westport, Stanford, and many others. And it reflects the 50-year look back included in the U.S. National Historic Preservation Act of 1966. At that time, they adopted that the 50-year requirement was seen as a reasonable compromise that allowed for the identification and protection of significant historical resources without unduly burdening property owners. And it remains a key feature of historic preservation laws in the U.S. today. And finally, I'll note that this whole ordinance, including what was there before and what we've done, is consistent with the city's POCD. The POCD has an entire chapter devoted to preserving and promoting our historic heritage, arts and culture. And among other things, it states that the city needs to be more proactive in preservation and notes the value of historic preservation in economic terms, noting that studies find that heritage tourism visitors typically spend more time and money than other tourists. So there is a real economic benefit to this. And I just want to note that Mr. Ireland is here, and I'll ask him to comment if he'd like to, and otherwise open questions to him. Bill, you want to add anything?
I just want to say all the hard work that Todd put into this. I was like the standby guy there. But Todd and Tom, you were both really instrumental in putting this together. It is a much better ordinance than what we had previously. It gives us a little more meat as far as things that happened, such as on 21 Willow Street. And I'm looking forward to enforcing this as long as I'm around. So I want to thank both of you for the hard work you put in, and appreciate it very much for the input you let me put into this, the little bit I had, but I appreciate very much the work I was able to do with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comment?
I do have a couple
Mr.
of,
Camacho?
I do have a couple of friendly amendments that I'd like to offer. I ran this by, these amendments by, proposed amendments by Brian Candela in the Corporation Counsel's office, who has opined that these are not substantial amendments such that it would require a return to a public hearing of this ordinance. And so I'm going to propose we could do them one at a time, or because there are two sections, or we can do them all together as
I think we should do them all together.
okay. So section 55 3, the section entitled Permit Required. I propose that in the first sentence we delete person and insert in lieu thereof property owner, and after demolish insert comma cause or permit to be demolished, so that the new sentence reads, no property owner shall demolish, cause, or permit to be demolished any building, structure, or part thereof without first obtaining a permit from the chief operating officer. And the reason for this proposed change is that it is the property owner that gets his or her or its property liened in the event of a violation or a continuing violation of this ordinance. And so the word person seemed not quite as descriptive as a property owner. And so that was the purpose of that. And in recognition that a property owner might not actually do the demolition, but might cause it to be demolished, the property, or permit someone to demolish it, whether or not they requested it that it be demolished. That incorporates, so that language, comma, cause or permit to be demolished, incorporates that notion.
And just a note, you said chief operating.
I'm sorry, I meant yes, I meant chief building officer official. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Camacho has proposed.
He has another one.
So that's
you have another one.
that's the
Okay,
first one. Yeah, section 55(8) violations and fines. I propose that in the first and third sentence we delete the word person again and insert property owner. And in the third sentence after this chapter, delete quote for a single violation end of quote. And after 30,000 or the word or delete in the case of the unauthorized demolition of a building, structure, or part thereof.
so that the new first and third sentence of that provision read, in addition to any other penalties and remedies provided by law, any property owner who violates any provision of this chapter shall be fined $250 per day, with each day of such violation constituting a separate violation. The total amount of all fines imposed on a property owner under this chapter shall not exceed the lesser of $30,000 or 10% of the assessed value of such property, structure, or part thereof. And so that would, those are the proposed changes. I did note as I was reviewing this just now that in that same section 55(8), the third sentence, it refers to homeowner, which is, I think, the first reference to homeowner, I believe, in the ordinance. So I would propose that homeowner also be changed to be deleted and a property owner be inserted in there as well.
For consistency, yes. Makes sense.
Any further comment or discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendments as proposed by Mr. Camacho? Oh,
Nora's hand was up.
I don't see her hand.
Diana.
Diana, your hand is up? No?
No, I was just, I thought, no.
Okay, I thought you said Nora.
Well, Nora's saying, no. Okay.
Ms. Najilski Eichner?
I don't see her.
No, my apologies. I was just trying to be ready to vote without
Okay.
my phone glitching, which clearly it's currently doing. Sorry.
Okay. So recalling, all in favor of the amendments as proposed by Mr. Camacho? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that passes. Now, all in favor of the item, the ordinance as amended? Please signify. by-
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor. I did have further question. I not related to the friendly amendment.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to very briefly explain my no vote on this ordinance, and I want to express my thanks to Mr. Livingston and Mr. Bryant and Mr. Ireland and the many other folks who commented on this. And as Mr. Livingston said, there was extensive discussion of this in the ordinance committee, so I refer people to the longer version to those conversations. But in essence, I had really hoped that we would reconsider the 50-year provision in this ordinance. I feel that it is painting with a very broad brush what is ultimately a very narrow set of homes and buildings that we're seeking to preserve. And in my opinion, therefore, sort of approaches regulation in a backwards way, particularly striving to create more affordable housing and striving to reduce housing costs. I think every regulation should be looked at in the light of, is this moving us forward towards our goals of affordability? And are we doing so in the way that is most efficient? And in this instance, although I, as a trained historian myself, am deeply respectful of the need to preserve history and deeply respectful of the value of preserving historic buildings, it is a relatively narrow set of buildings that we ultimately seek to preserve, and that in fact have ever been sought to be held from demolition under this ordinance. And so I very much look forward to the inventory that is being created and the date. And my hope is that once that inventory is in place, we perhaps will revisit this ordinance and consider whether we may be better served by an approach that preemptively identifies homes that might be subject to protection from demolition and does not require every home to go that's older than 50 years to go through a review process. Like I said, I really appreciate the work of everyone on this, and I do very much appreciate and support the improvements to the functionality of the ordinance as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Najilski Eichner. We'll recall, I'll have the vote again. All in favor of the ordinance as amended by Mr. Camacho? All opposed? So it's one opposed, Ms. Najilski Eichner, and everybody else in favor. So the motion carries. Next item, 7E3, Mr. Hooverman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I get started, I want to give my colleague, Diana Revolus, a moment.
Thank you. So first, with that has nothing to do with anything. I just want to say to those out there, it's multiple sclerosis awareness month. I just wanted to say that has nothing to do with anything. Next, why I would like to be able to recuse myself of the following that we will be voting on, because I have had the opportunity of not only having my own idea come to fruition, but I was able to work with in doing this. It was a conversation with Margaret, myself, and Diamond with the TNP alcohol committee from Norwalk Partnerships that is hoping to see this happen for our Norwalk teens. So therefore, that being said, I would like to recuse myself from this vote and ask to be called back in when it's done.
Please let the record show that Ms. Revolus has recused herself from item 7E3. Mr. Hooverman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Authorize the Mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary with the Norwalk Partnership Positive Directions to serve as fiduciary to support Norwalk Teen Nights Out in the amount of $50,000 total during the period of April 1st, 2023 to August 30th, 2023. ARPA account noted. I'd like to move this item and speak to it briefly.
Mr. Hooverman.
This is, I think, a fantastic item for Norwalk and a fantastic initiative that we're able to do because of the ARPA money that has come forward to the city. We've had, even before the pandemic, I think that our teens need outlets and places to go and things to do. And this initiative with the Norwalk Partnership and our own Community Services Department, I think is going to be a fantastic move forward. To that end, we have our Director of Human Services, Anna Vivian Estrella, and Margaret Watt of the Norwalk Partnership here on the line tonight to speak briefly to this item and answer any questions that you all may have. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair David Hubelman, and thank you so much to the council for giving us an opportunity to talk on this very important initiative. I'm going to introduce Margaret, but first I wanted to make sure that it would be okay for us to share a couple of slides. Sorry, I have some company in the room with me. And so Margaret will be able to talk on the slides. I just want to make sure I have permission. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, the power. Okay. Margaret, can you see?
I can. I'm on my phone. Good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for this opportunity. I'm phoning in here from West Rocks because we're doing a substance use awareness program right now. And so I stepped out and I'm on my phone. But we're so happy to be able to present this idea just super briefly. Nights Out, the name kind of says it all. But let me just quickly explain what the Norwalk Partnership is and where this idea stemmed from and how it relates to COVID and ARPA money. So if you can hit the next screen, Anna. Yeah, there we go. The Norwalk Partnership is a coalition of stakeholders in Norwalk. We have parents, we have teens, we have the city, the schools, about 30 nonprofits, businesses, all 12 required sectors of a coalition and many members of each, working together with the goal of preventing substance misuse and promoting mental wellness in our youth and young adults. The majority of the work is funded through the CDC Drug-Free Communities Grant, which I run. And part of what we do is gather the youth, do the youth survey every 2 years in Norwalk. I think those of you who've seen the youth survey results from the last survey, the June 2021 survey from the COVID year, the 2021 COVID year, showed just awful mental health issues in our kids. a third of all middle schoolers and half of all high schoolers were experiencing depression, high suicidal ideation, et cetera. There was an impact on relationships. We resurveyed this year and things are still getting somewhat better, but kids need outlets. They need to socialize. They have lost ground in terms of building relationships with others. And they say there's nothing to do in Norwalk. So we put this initiative together literally in response to the issues we saw and said, how can we respond to the high levels of depression in our kids? How can we help them connect to their peers? How can we prevent the risky behaviors that come up when kids are isolated or alone or feeling bad about themselves? So let's prevent substance misuse by creating safe opportunities for them to socialize and rebuild social skills. And so the idea is every couple of weeks ideally on a Friday or Saturday night, a fun, substance-free social opportunity for Norwalk teens, organized through the Norwalk Partnership. The grant would come to Positive Directions as fiduciary, but every activity is being planned by a group of coalition members, including Diana, Anna, me, a bunch of teens, a lot of different organizations. And we're coordinating and planning a number of initiatives. So already in April, we're going to have a bowling night and we're going to have an ice skating night. We're going to make sure that we're targeting about 80 kids per event. They will be around different parts of town. They will be catering to different interests because some kids are athletes and some kids are musicians. We have a pretty intensive plan to really market this through to parents and to teens, possibly on buses, as well as lawn signs, all kinds of communications groups that you can see on the screen that are going to support getting the word out. We're having a meeting on this Friday with a lot of different teens to really talk about how they can be ambassadors and loop in their friends and loop in the kids who are disconnected. And we have a pretty good plan. So this was just a quick overview and summary. I think the money is going to be so well spent because we're going to have kids that are connecting to other kids and activities that they just have not had the opportunity to do.
So before I open it up to questions, before we open it up to questions, I just wanted to highlight that this is money that was designated for youth services, for a youth initiative through the ARPA money that we've received. And so the permitted usage has already been approved and moving forward. This was just an opportunity for us to really codify the initiative and the purpose of how we were going to use that money. And now, does anybody have any questions?
I would just make one last comment virtually. Mr. Mayor, I just think this is a wonderful program. I'm glad that we're able to do it. I hope that we're able to find a way to continue this program in the future. I think it's something that our community needs. We need to embrace our young people and give them options. And I think it's about options, and that's what's most important.
My thoughts exactly, and I believe this pilot program, for lack of a better term, will give an indication of not only successes, but it'll help us improve the program for the future and make changes. I think Ms. Smith has a comment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the Community Services Department, Lamont and Anna Vivian, Margaret, and the Norwalk Partnership. This is an extraordinary opportunity for our kids, and it is long, long overdue. And I'm so thankful for those ARPA funds that we are able to offer this to the kids. Take it from a parent who, trucked their kids all over different towns, trying to find activities for them. It's just been so long needed. And I think that, we already want to start to be thinking about how we might be able to fund this after those ARPA funds run out, because I just have a feeling it's going to be a huge hit with the kids. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Further comments, Mr. Goldstein?
Yeah, the only thing I also want to mention, and obviously extending my thanks to the community service and the Norwalk Partnership team, who put together obviously really stellar seeming program. We talked just a few weeks ago in the midst of our budget that that the number proposed as part of our cap was not going to be the full extent of our commitment to Norwalk students and their mental health. And this initiative is what I hope is the first in a series of efforts and initiatives by this government to make sure that we are doing as much as we can for kids and their mental health. Programs like this, I think, will provide a very positive direction in achieving that goal. So I will enthusiastically support this and initiatives like it in the future.
Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Revolution, you are welcome to come back if you are within.
Let me let her know.
Yeah.
I just texted.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Going
you, Ms.
back to
Watt,
the
for your
presentation. Good
work on
night.
this. Thank you. Anna Vivian.
Thanks, Anna Vivian.
Night.
Seeing no business to come before the council, I'll be waiting for, pardon me?
Only one person can make this motion.
I'll be
We'll wait.
waiting for Ms. Revolution.
Lisa,
Used to make this one.
Ms. Shanahan moves to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We are adjourned at